All right, hello again. So in this video, I thought we would look at some of the final assets and deliverables and things that you need to do for your final project. There's lots of documentation, I think, or details on this on the class webpage and on the final project webpage, but I thought maybe a little video would help a little bit too. Just talking about things that you need to do to finish this thing up. And the good thing for you is there's no exercise, right? It's just like look at a few things. So we'll talk about asset export. We'll talk about design specifications, or design specs for short. We'll talk about your presentation and your slides, what should be in those, and some tips for all that kind of stuff. Your video presentation. So basically you're going to take your slides and present it as a video or record it as a video. And that's kind of instead of us doing sort of an in-person thing and talking about it. So you're doing a video. It doesn't have the back and forth. Obviously, a video doesn't have the back and forth that sort of a design review would be, or even a portfolio presentation or a design presentation, because you're not taking questions per se live. You know, you can see some in the discussion forums and things, but a little bit different. But yeah, so that's kind of what we're doing. So looking at first asset export, and you guys have seen this before already, I believe, in earlier videos, but if you forgot, or just to review. So let's say I wanted to export something like this Pluto right here. And I can go down to the bottom, and I already had that in there, but if I click on export on the plus, you'll see it exports by default at, click on the plus and it exports at one size, and it exports as a PNG. For our purposes, you can export as a PNG. The format could be in real life a PNG and SVG. Those are probably the two that you might see if you have to export assets at all. In Figma, a lot of developers are going directly into Figma and grabbing what they want from Figma, I believe. So you may not have to do this depending on what your situation is, but a lot of times you will. So like I said, it depends on the situation as far as what your delivery platform is, what your developer needs as far as file types go. But PNG and SVG are probably going to be the two that you're usually going to see. JPEG is lossy, remember, so you're probably not going to deliver anything as a JPEG, I wouldn't think. Okay, so if I select something and then I hit the plus, I get an export. And if I click the export Pluto 1, and then you'll see, I think I've got that over. So there it goes to my downloads, and it exported that asset, right? Also, as a reminder, which I think you've seen before, if you name your frames and components and things using a naming convention that uses / like here, right? These are just some status bars and buttons and things from iOS. If you name them with a slash, the Figma, when it creates the assets, will create this same file structure when you export. So it is a good idea to kind of name things this way if you want to save yourself some time and organize those files for delivery and handoff, which is kind of what we're talking about, right? So let me select all three of these. I'm just going to select all three of them. And then I'm going to go down to the bottom, and I'll take this off. I was already in there. It does remember when you select something as far as export goes. It will remember the last settings that you had. So if I go to hit the plus on export again, like that, and then you can see I've got a 1x PNG, and I can hit the plus and it's going to do a 2x. And then if I hit plus again, it'll do a 3x. You can always select these and adjust whatever you need. And then this is the naming convention it's going to be using to name those assets. And this is the file type like we saw before. And then here it just is a checkbox that says contents only for each of those layers. So if I were to hit export 3 layers now, you'll see in the downloads folder, which is where it's going here, I get a folder called handoff.zip. And then inside of there, that's the name of the file. That's why it's calling it that. And then inside of there, there's a bar, or actually, it's going to give me the folder called bars, right? If I look at the naming convention again, bars, status bars, iPhone, right? Then bars, status bars, iPhone, etc. So it's going to end up putting those assets in the same folder structure that you have set up in your name of your components, which is kind of convenient, right? So you can kind of do that ahead of time You could also do this after, right? Move things around, rename them, but it's easier to kind of do it this way ahead of time. So that is exporting assets. There is also, you can go export, you can go to File and Export, and you can export everything that has an export setting on it at once. So since I have 10 things, it looks like that I have picked an asset or picked an export setting for, I could export that way and it'll export all of them. So you can export all at once as well. So that's under the menu, File, and then Export. Okay, so that is kind of exporting. Next thing is design specs or design specifications. So I have some examples of that. So what are design specifications? Mostly they include things like measurements and functional annotations, which is kind of a fancy way of saying like instructions, how things work. So different states of buttons, for example, measurements are measurements, right? Measurements of different elements so that a developer knows how big something's supposed to be, or anybody else that's looking at the design specs. And then functional annotations say like, okay, this is what it looks like under this situation in this state. This is what it looks like under that state. This is what it actually does. This is how it's animated. All kinds of anything that you need to say to explain to someone else how the design works and how's it supposed to behave. It's supposed to activate on a rollover or whatever. So here are some examples, and I think you have these. This is from an Adobe project, and there's an article based on this. You probably have this. I think hopefully I gave this to you guys. But these are some examples of functional or specifications, design specifications. So you can see there's a lot of measurement information in here, right? This is telling me that I have a 12 pixel margin on both sides. Whoops, I zoomed in and zoomed out. There we go. Let me zoom back to actual size. There we go. And you can see there's spacing information, margins between elements, also font information. So here it's telling me this is Helvetica Neue medium, 13 pixels. Color information, all that stuff is in there. It's often in this red text too. You might hear the term red lines, which I'll show you a plugin for actually. That will help. So that's a lot of the stuff that's in there as far as just describing where things should be. And again, this is ostensibly it's for a developer, but it could be for anybody that needs to see like, okay, how big is this thing and how much space is it going to take up? There's also functional annotations, which are kind of how things work. So here you can see it's just talking about this disabled done button. It's rephrased and repurposed to be an action to recrop all images. Like just basically giving information about the controls, what they do, different states of pages. So these are all different interactions on this one screen or modal. And it's all annotated, right? So it tells everybody that's looking at it how this thing works, when to use it, what's it going to look like in these different states. Here's another example, I think, where it has information about what happens, like the border disappears when you click to edit, things like that. So all that kind of stuff is included in those design specifications. I also wanted to show you a couple of tools you can use, or a couple of things you can use. So this is red lines. It's a plugin for Figma that actually does red lines. So I think I mentioned this, but a lot of times these are called red lines, the measurements and things like that. So this is a plugin that you can download from the Figma community. It's called Red Lines. There's probably more too, but here's how this works. So if I were to select this Pluto again, just to show you quickly how this works, and then I can right click and go to plugins, and there's red lines right there. All right, sorry about that. This decided not to work, this plugin. So this is called Red Lines. And what you can do is you can select, let's say I select this Pluto again. Let me select Pluto. And then you can click on these. And then you'll see it automatically takes the measurement of that. That's the horizontal, right? Here's the vertical. And you may have to move it, but it just adds those as different elements into your file. So this says that this is 86 pixels wide. This one is 375. If I move this up, I'll just hold down shift so that goes straight up. So it's showing me that that's 375 wide, and etc. So there's a little more to that, but you can kind of see how that works a little bit. One thing that I forgot to mention, which isn't in these examples actually, but sometimes the way people do these design specifications or functional, functional specifications is they'll number something. So they may put like a little number 2 here next to Pluto, and then off to the side they'll put a 2 that tells the whoever's looking at it, and then that those go together, and then some notes about how that thing works. Here you can see they're kind of using these lines. You'll see both of those kind of methodologies used. But that's red lines. Another thing that people use, it's a different service called Zeppelin. So Zeppelin is a publishing. It's to help you publish your actual designs, and it does help with handoff, and it is for the designers and developers to kind of get this process a little more automated. There are plugins for Figma as well as XD and Sketch and Photoshop, so you can quickly kind of get that information out of a design for a developer. So that's another possibility. If anybody wants to try that, you're welcome to try that. I think there is a free level for Zeppelin. You get to do 1 project. So yeah, that's up to you as far as if you want to try that out. I know some developers and designers are using it though. And then of course I already mentioned, I think, but if you go to the inspect panel and you select something, you get a lot of information there as well. So some developers have told me that maybe there's a little bit less red lines, fewer red lines done, fewer design specification documents done using a tool, kind of a new tool like Figma, because a developer can go in there and see colors and sizes and things really easily. So here's the properties, the height and width of that element, where it is, where it's located, even some CSS related to it, colors, all that stuff is already kind of in Figma. So it's not like you have to write all that down again necessarily, depending on your situation and the workflow of a particular project. Let's think about it that way. So that's kind of design specs. And again, look at the details on the class webpage and the final project page to see. You don't have to do every screen, for example. This project, which I think I gave to you guys, hopefully I gave to you guys, is super extended, super extensive. You know, you don't have to do all this for our project. This is a long-term giant project, which somebody made a lot of money on, actually. Okay, so next thing is your slides and presentation. So you're going to do a slideshow that documents your process, kind of like a case study, pretty much a case study in one form. It should have a title screen. It should have your original project plan, your sketches, documentation you have from user testing if you have whatever you have, wireframe, style guide, design specifications, which we just talked about, style guide. Most of this stuff, right, you've already done. So you're just kind of going to integrate that into a slideshow to present. And then your final designs or screens would be kind of the capper for that. Optionally, you can talk about challenges you faced and what you did to overcome them, things you had to do, change directions, whatever you had to do. And that kind of humanizes it a little bit and makes it clear to whoever is looking at a presentation, that this isn't fantasy land. This stuff is not always perfect. It's not going to be perfect the first time. And it is a process, right? It's an iterative process. You have to change things and evolve. And maybe you got some user testing results that said that there was some issues with something that you were doing in your critical user path. So you had to change some stuff. So that's fine. That can make it seem more realistic, right? Not so unrealistic as far as your presentation goes. Couple tips. Keep the word count down on each slide. That's sort of a presentation tip in general. You don't want to have tons and tons of text on slides. Don't rush either in your slides. Well, that's more of your video presentation, but yeah, keep the word count down. You can use whatever you want to do the slides. You can use PowerPoint, you can use Keynote, you could use Google Slides. Doesn't really matter, whatever you're comfortable with. The video part of it, so what you're going to do for the video presentation of that is basically record you presenting and narrating your slides. So you're narrating your slides, you're presenting your slides. You can do that directly in PowerPoint. You can record in PowerPoint. I don't know how great it looks. It's not, yeah, it's fine. If you like to do that, if you want to try that, that's fine. There's tons of other software, obviously, that you can do a screen capture with, like I'm doing right now with you guys. Screencast-O-Matic is one. I think I've got it right here. This is a free, or has a free level that you can do screen capture. So you basically will use it, record your screen as you narrate your slides, and that's kind of what you got. ScreenFlow is another one. ScreenFlow is actually what I use for this video. So that's ScreenFlow. This one is not free though. Screencast-O-Matic has a free level. I don't think there's a free level of ScreenFlow. There's also Camtasia, which is another one that's Mac and PC. I think maybe ScreenFlow might be Mac only. But Camtasia is Mac and PC. It does have a free trial, but it's probably got a watermark or something on it. So, but there's other free ones. Loom is another one that I don't think I put down. Oh, I did put it down, but I didn't open the website. There is a free version of Loom you can use. That's another one that's a little bit newer. I haven't really tried that one, but they're all kind of similar, actually. Some tips on that. Rehearse. And I know people don't like to rehearse, but just rehearse it once or twice, go through it and see how long it takes. You do have a time limit. It's not a 20-minute video or, like a feature film, like an hour and a half of you talking. You don't want to do that, and yeah, people don't want to see that usually. I know I make you guys do that, but you can't make me do it. So anyway, yeah, rehearse it. Check out the time limit. Some of that stuff, some of these details, of course, might change on the class web pages. So make sure you check, and there might be other things to include here, but that's generally it. So rehearse it and time it, and you'll find that once you rehearse it once, you'll be much smoother, and you'll benefit each time you kind of rehearse, and it'll get less and less beneficial to rehearse. But one time actually helps a lot. It's kind of surprising, actually. And then same thing on the video. You can also kind of do what I mentioned up here in the slides. You can talk about things that were things you had to change, changes you made as a result of user testing, all that kind of stuff can help and makes your video more relatable. Yeah, I think that's it. So that's just kind of a quick description of what you guys are doing to finish up your awesome final projects, which we're all going to take a look at and give you some feedback on one more time. But hopefully that helps a little bit, and I'll talk to you again later.